Think about your relationship with money. If it's not good, it's time to look at that. Because I promise you that if you are in a situation whereby you've just thrown money in the corner and not really thought about it, and you're not interested in it, and you don't really feel that you're going to be very good with it, and you're standing there in what I would call a financial fog. But I would say, first of all, really think about what your relationship with money is, and just say to yourself, what am I doing here? What am I not doing? Am I actually in control of this situation, or am I out at sea and I'm just sort of floating on this ocean with no particular direction and actually just feeling really lost and looking at my supplies and realising that they're running out?
Welcome to Medics in Control, the podcast for doctors who want more control over their time, money, and direction without leaving medicine. I'm Jamie Gross, NHS consultant and founder of Medics in Control, and I'm joined by certified money coach, Fanny Snaith. This podcast is about creating the headspace to think more clearly, ask better questions, and build a way of living and working that actually feels aligned. Each week, we talk about the things that sit in the background for a lot of doctors: money, mindset, direction, and that sense that life can quietly drift if you're not paying attention. So if you've worked hard to build a career in medicine but don't quite feel how you expected to, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get into today's episode. We're going to talk about this concept of money.
Yeah.
And I remember it kind of takes me back from when I was going to go for consultant jobs. And I remember going up to Nottingham on a Sunday morning for consultant interview practice.
Yeah.
And everything was going well. And all of a sudden we got onto the topic of money. And one of the course instructors said, you've got to be a bit careful about talking about money, because if you talk about money too much, or you talk about private work, then you're going to be perceived as either not being committed or greedy. So you're best to stay clear from that conversation. And I didn't really think much of it at first, because I thought, okay, fine, I just need to follow the rules and play the game. But then when I drove back from that day, I thought to myself, that's a bit odd.
It's very odd.
Why actually is that? And then I thought to myself, I've kind of like gone through medical school, gone through medical training, and I haven't even thought about money. And then I thought to myself, well, how much is that medical environment? How much of that influenced my objection or avoidance, should I say, probably a better term, to avoid money altogether? And I just couldn't really, I don't know, I can't really explain it. It just made me feel a bit uncomfortable. So
I can completely understand that. And my first question that's coming to mind is, how many other jobs do people go for, like out of the medic profession or any profession, where you're not really supposed to talk about the money?
Yeah, it's weird. And I'll tell you another weird thing as well. When you're training or even when you're a consultant, there's a lot of things that you're asked or invited to do. So one of the things was, I don't know if you heard of advanced life support courses. So all of these courses, there may be advanced trauma life support or advanced life support. These are all provider courses where it's expected that doctors get recertified every so often to be able to, if someone has a cardiac arrest, for example, you know how to manage it. So what's really interesting there is that they're inviting people to be instructors, and you've got to go through a whole process where you've got to go on a training course to become an instructor, and then you have an opportunity to register to all different types of places that are running those courses. But there's never any remuneration when it comes to pay. So it's almost that you're invited to give up your time for free, and in return, it's good because you're giving or you're serving, and you're going to enjoy it. And I tell you what we'll do. As a thank you, we're going to take you out for a faculty meal between day 1 and day 2 as a thank you. And it's all going to be great. And the thing is that it's not just those advanced life support courses. It seems to be across the board. Any time that there's an opportunity to give something, to teach something, it's interesting how a lot of colleagues are very willing to just give up their time and not expect to be paid for it. And I'm not sure, and it's just interesting to see to what extent that relates to the topic that we're talking about here, which is essentially why, is it because we're uncomfortable talking about money, or is it because of something else? It just seems to be a cultural thing that I haven't really got to the bottom of.
I've got some ideas on this. So first of all, I think many people are uncomfortable talking about money. It's not just in the medical profession. So let's take that on board as read. In fact, you still look at the figures and people would rather talk about sex and death rather than talk about money. So let's take that on board and say that's okay. But something else I find interesting is in my world, which is money coaching world, where I help people untangle their relationships with money. So this is all about this. I use a structure of money types. They're not personalities or anything like that, but there's kind of drivers that we have inside of us. And there are 8 of them, and they all think and behave very differently about money. I'm not going to describe them all now, but there's one, which is the creator artist. And the creator artist, if you just picture for a moment Van Gogh, or however you pronounce it, I never know whether it's Van Gogh or Van Gogh, but you take an artist like that, and everything that he does, it's all about the picture, right? He's very internally motivated in his art or his craft or his service. And it's like, I'll eat and drink later. I've got to do this. And I actually look at medics, and from my experience of talking to a few medics now, especially about their money, I do see quite a high creator artist, which is like you have initially a high internal motivation to be of service to your patient, and that's what you're doing. And it's like when that question or that statement that came in your interview in Nottingham, whereas it's not really perceived to be that great that you're asking about the money or talking about the amount of private work that you're doing, is literally saying, I don't want you here for the money. You need to be here because of the patients. And I need you really to show that. Because if you don't show it, you're basically saying you don't sound like you're committed. Does that sound about right? Yeah. So that's all very well. But we all need to pay because we need to get paid because we need to have our bills paid. But one of the other traits of the creator artist is that they are perceived to be pretty detached from money, i.e. they don't want anything to do with money. So I'm wondering, and this is a question back to you really, is for when I was a little girl, it was always perceived that doctors got paid loads, right? If you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, one of those kind of jobs, that you were always going to be paid a lot of money. And so I'm wondering that if you've got that kind of creator artist where you're a carer, you're a service provider, you're a giver, and actually then you're detached with money, that's already saying something about your relationship with money. If you know that you're walking into a profession that pays well anyway, does it give you the perfect excuse to actually go, well, actually I can become even more detached from money because I know that I'm going to be paid well, and actually that's sort of fine. And for the person that's interviewing you to say that, they're projecting their thoughts onto you, aren't they? They're projecting their frame of mind onto you. I think that if you talk about the money, or if the people you're going to sit opposite with, if you start talking about money, they're going to think that you don't care, which is just a complete projection of their thoughts, not where you're coming from at all.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because you've just reminded me of. I went to a careers fair at sixth form when I was at school, when we're talking about careers, and I was always interested in being a doctor. I suppose it was because I saw a few programs on TV. I think there was that program with shadowing junior doctors at St Mary's back in the 1990s, and I thought this looks a really, really fun and exciting career opportunity. And I remember going to a careers fair, and there was a GP sitting at a desk, and he was saying, I remember he was saying a lot of things, but one thing that really stood out, he said, don't go into medicine for the money. And then when I look at it and I compare to the advice I got from my parents, and I don't know if you know that my parents got divorced when I was very young. My mum and stepfather set up some businesses in IT recruitment, and they built up a company, did very well, but during 1992, they hit some financial challenges. Some of it was related to the recession at the time, that year, but also they had a bit of a fallout with one of their business partners, and they almost lost everything. And that was 1992, and the careers fair and me looking into careers came a few years later. And yes, I heard that story from the GP, that thing from the GP saying, don't go into medicine for the money. But also, my parents were saying, well, if you want a stable career, then, and you enjoy the sciences and you enjoy medicine and you think that's something that you might want to do, then doing a career in medicine sounds like a great fit for you, a great opportunity for you, because you don't have to go through the stress. It's recession proof. You're not going to have to worry about money. And I think that probably wasn't the overall driver, but it was definitely a bonus, and it was definitely an influencing factor in my decision making when I chose careers. Let's face it, when you're 18, it's no age to discuss careers and everything else, but it all seemed to line up. And it seemed to really come from my parents saying, look, go to medicine, you've got a stable career, you're going to be sorted. Look at those consultants that are driving around in Harley Street, and they're all driving nice cars, etc., etc. Yes, you're going to have to work hard. I knew that junior doctors work hard because of the crazy hours that they were talking about in that St Mary's documentary years ago. I can't remember what that program was now, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But at the same time, I went into medicine with the intention that money was not the be-all and end-all. It was actually okay to live comfortably. I didn't need the big house because I wanted to do something that I was really passionate and fulfilled with. But it just seemed to having that financial security did give that added bonus and reason to do it. And I'm just wondering to what extent those conversations at that stage of my life have contributed to largely my avoidance of money altogether, because I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of saw money as a bit of a hassle, as something that I didn't really have to get involved with, until in 2022, I became really stuck, because at that time we'd just upsized on a mortgage. Things were financially stretched anyway. I've got married with two kids, living in Southeast England, where the cost of living is going up and up and up, particularly since the pandemic. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, I thought I was going to be financially comfortable, but actually the reality is that it's not terrible. I can put food on the table, but at the same time, the lifestyle that I'm leading is not in alignment with what I thought I would be getting as a consultant.
Yeah. Okay. So you touched on a number of things there. So your decision process about going into medicine, you thought the program was exciting. You saw your parents doing their thing and how that could have possibly all fallen down around their ears and didn't look very attractive to you at the time. Being told not to go into it for the money, but then thinking about the Harley Street doctors. I have to say that you didn't ever say in any of the bit that you just said about the dream of healing the sick. There wasn't that part front and centre. You just thought it'd be quite interesting to go into medicine.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that.
No. It's really interesting, actually, because I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, you're told what to say in a medical interview, but I'm going to be honest with you. I just wanted something that was going to stimulate me, that had a lot of, I think variety was important, because I remember how it just didn't appeal to me to sit at a desk at that time 9 to 5, or things are different now. And I just like the idea of being challenged and having that variety, and being able to develop knowledge and skills I think it was just the challenge which was probably the biggest draw for me.
Okay, so let's get back to the topic,
Yeah.
which is why do people feel uncomfortable? Why do doc medics feel uncomfortable about money? Let's think about it solving your problem at the time. Your problem was you didn't want to sit behind a desk. You didn't want to do what your parents did, and medicine looked quite interesting, and it came into your realm of focus at the time. And you added all those things up, and it sort of all went together. And at the same time, you said that you didn't seem to be that interested in money. Well, that sort of creator artisty thing, I'm not really that bothered about the money. I just want to do something that's really good. And I happen to know that one of your values is growth, right? So I know that's going to be front and center of my mind, but maybe the listeners don't know that. So let's just go down that route. That gives you the perfect excuse that if you don't have a great relationship with money, or even a very established relationship with money, right? You haven't necessarily learnt a whole load of it and thought, actually, no, I'm not interested in that. You just hadn't really got on board with it. It gives you the perfect excuse to take money, throw it in the corner, put it in the corner and throw a coat over it and forget about it, assuming that it's going to have a tick against it and it's going to be fine.
Yeah. It's exactly it. Because I'll be honest with you, I wasn't interested in it. I'm going to be honest.
Right.
You know, because I thought to myself, well, kind of like, I don't need to get involved in money because my interest is in medicine. Okay?
Absolutely.
And so, but having the benefit of being financially comfortable, what I thought at the time, and having the excuse to ignore it meant that I could give all my attention and energy into my medical career, which is what that was through choice. That's because I actually genuinely was very, very, things have changed, but I was at that time very, very passionate about medicine.
Okay, so good, but it gave you, just to bring it back to the money part, but it gave you the excuse to put money in the corner. You know what they said on Dirty Dancing? Nobody puts baby in the corner. Now, my experience from the money coaching world or from a finance world is for anybody who puts money in the corner and throws a cloak over it, it's never going to end well.
No.
Never.
No. Well, it didn't.
Exactly. And I think this is what happens. But now let's partner it with medics again. Let's bring it back. So let's imagine the creator artist again.
Okay.
Who is very dedicated to their trade. Like you just said, I wanted to dedicate my time to my medicine career, right? So think Van Gogh again, all about the picture and all that kind of stuff. The money will sort itself out later. I'm doing this, I'm doing all this, I'm doing all this. Now enter into 2026 and the X ... previous years, where all of a sudden you're working within a structure that is physically stretched, financially stretched. It's in an ever-changing world of advancement. It's been through a pandemic. And all of a sudden, what you tend to find, or what I'm finding with the more experience I get with working with you in Medics in Control, is that creator artist moves to martyr, where the boundaries disappear, the levels of service are racked up so hugely that you feel stretched at every single corner. The government comes down and, yes, gives you a nice chunky pay rise. I know that might be argued, but let's just go with it for now. But also, you're taxed to hell. So essentially, if you start earning over 100K, it's almost like, why do I bother, sort of thing, unless you really know the intricacies of it and actually really gen up on how to manage money. And all of a sudden, you're in a pickle, because the way you've ended up is you've got money in the corner, you're working all hours God sends, plus all the extra hours that you've chosen to do to up your income from the disappointment that you'd already had from when you got to start paying mortgages, etc. And now you don't even have the time to sit down and learn about money, nor the interest, by the way, because it's still got a coat over it. So that's screaming at you from the corner. You got the NHS and wherever else screaming at you from the other corner, and you're sitting in the middle, quite frankly, just feeling knackered. So of course it's going to be uncomfortable to talk about money. Why would it be comfortable to talk about money?
Yeah, I think I just want to pick up on something you said there, actually, because you said working all hours. And see, this is the thing. When I became a consultant, I remember my stepfather saying to me one afternoon, he said that you're quite lucky because you've got your basic salary and you can do extra work, and that can pay for things when you get a bit stretched. And so many people don't have that opportunity. You know, if you compare it to other jobs and other industries, your pay is your pay. There's not really an opportunity for overtime. But let's be honest with ourselves, the sheer demand on the health service, there's usually going to be an opportunity somewhere, whether it be in the private sector or whether it be in the NHS, where you can earn extra money. But this is what I noticed, and this is what really undid me 4 or 5 years ago, was the fact that you've got that mindset, it will be okay, because firstly, and this is something we haven't discussed, is I've worked 20 plus years to be in the position of being a consultant. And you know what? I bloody well deserve to have some nice things. I deserve to have a nice car. I deserve to have a reasonable house in a reasonable neighborhood. I deserve to go on a nice holiday. Okay. So whether people agree with that or not, it's not really the point. The point is that's the mentality I had. Now, because I put that, as you described, that cloak over money, then what I will do is I will still have that cloak over money, but what I will do is I will just take those opportunities to do more extra work.
Yeah, of course.
And you do that without realizing it to begin with, because you think, actually, how bad can it be? Because if you compare to compared to my mates, they're working every weekday, Monday to Friday, and one of the benefits being a consultant is you do have a little bit more free time. You may have a day and a half a week where there's nothing scheduled, and that time could be spent. And then when you compare to your mates who are doing other industries, you think, well, that's just the same as everyone else. I can do that. But one of the things that really hit home only a few years into it was you really do see for yourself the impact of that. And you mentioned about proportionally paying the highest taxes possible. You really see for yourself that you're working and working and working, and despite that work you're doing, you're looking at your bank balance at the end of it and you're not seeing much of a difference. And that does relate to paying more taxes. Maybe we're going over the pension allowance, you're having to have tax bills and whatever it is, the cost of living, lifestyle creep, maybe more taxes. It always seems to be that you're always stretched. And I remember a senior colleague spoke about, we had a discussion about this at the end of a list one day, and he said, if you've got kids and you've got family, you will always feel stretched no matter where you are in your career.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How many industries can you think of that earn as much as doctors, consultants, purely by trading their time for money?
No, this is the point. This is exactly the point. So the point is, the weird thing about it is that, yes, I feel financially stretched, but I shouldn't feel this way because I know that I'm a top earner. So I suppose the question back to you is, what's going on there?
Well, isn't it the point that, I mean, again, this is probably another episode, but when you're trading your time for money, you've got two ways of it going. You either charge more money per hour or you do more hours.
Yeah, right.
So you're working, unless you're charging hundreds of pounds an hour, which I'm guessing that if you are that Harley Street consultant that is just doing private clients and has actually gone down that route, which, I don't know, this is another topic as well. Are you then moving from your creator artist, I really care about medicine, and actually waving that flag and going, actually, do you know what? I just want to do this for the money now, and I'm going to work with celebrities or whoever they are and charge them thousands of pounds per hour to come and see me, right? In which case, it's a whole mindset shift. Or are you going to be that creator artist, the Van Gogh? Really got to learn how to pronounce his name properly. The Van Dudar, who's not just allowed to paint his picture and be all into the picture. He's got to be painting 16 pictures at the same time. And wonder why he's not feeling knackered, undervalued, overworked, and possibly underpaid.
Yeah, right.
But again, this is such a rich tapestry. I think it's such a really big topic in medicine in particular, because there is, hashtag first world problems, what you were talking about back then, earning tax because I'm earning over £100,000. There are plenty of people out there who are just about earning over earning 20 grand a year, right? So it's all about putting it into a perspective that suits our own individuality, us as a person, what suits for us. Because I could be sitting here, we could be having this conversation in a pub, and there might very well be people going, well, it's all right for you, mate. You sitting there moaning on your high horse that you're earning this. But I genuinely get it, that you've done all that work and you've done all of this and you thought it was going to be different. And the outcome is not as you expected. And you feel uncomfortable about it. You don't really know what to do about it. And bearing in mind that you've never really paid it any attention in the past, what the hell is going to be that rock bottom moment as to when you decide that you need to do something about it now? And that really is why we created our program, isn't it?
No, it is. And that rock bottom, as a lot of people know, that rock bottom moment for me was exactly what you said. You're working all the hours, and because of that, you're constantly tired, exhausted, frustrated, stressed. And over time, that then affects relationships. And all of a sudden, it's not just the money, it's everything else in your life that starts deteriorating, coming unstuck to the point where you completely lose control of everything. And in my case, it got to the point where I genuinely couldn't look after myself, let alone patients, and I had to call in sick.
Exactly.
So, but just going back just a few steps, because I suppose we've unpicked quite a lot already, but what advice would you give to colleagues that they hear everything, they think, okay, well, maybe I've ignored it, but I'm now in a situation where I've got an expensive mortgage, I don't want to move house, my kids may be going to private school, may not be, doesn't matter, and I just feel, well, it probably does matter. Okay, let's supposing they're at private school. You don't want to take them out because they've got, they're settled in that school. You don't want to unsettle them. You don't want to move house because you've worked hard to get to that point. So you've got expenses coming out of your ear, and you're in a situation where you're just working. And then all of a sudden, it's very easy to say, oh, well, you've got to, now is a great time to look into it. But how can you, what advice would you give those people that just feel completely snowed under financially, completely trapped, and think to themselves, I can't believe I'm in this situation and I'm too far away from retirement. I'm late 40s. I've got at least 10 years left and I just can't keep going in this way. What advice? Is there anything that you can share that would help people in that situation?
Do you know, I'm going to be so frustrating when I say this. I'm going to say, listen to the next podcast.
I don't even know what the next podcast is.
I know, but do you know what? We're definitely going to talk about it. But look, in a nutshell, without going into the detail, because it's too much now, I would say, think about how you think and feel about money. Think about your relationship with money. If it's not good, it's time to look at that. Because I promise you that if you are in a situation whereby you've just thrown money in the corner and not really thought about it, and you're not interested in it, and you don't really feel that you're going to be very good with it, and you're standing there in what I would call a financial fog, I'm not going to sit here right now and go, write a list of your expenses, write a list of your income. I'm not going to do that right now because that's just crazy. That's another time. But I would say, first of all, really think about what your relationship with money is and just say to yourself, what am I doing here? What am I not doing? Am I actually in control of this situation, or have I just am I out at sea and I'm just sort of floating on this ocean with no particular direction and actually just feeling really lost and looking at my supplies and realizing that they're running out? But that is the time, really, is just to, I would say probably first of all is go and ask somebody for help, because doing it on your own, if you're already feeling knackered, is going to be tall order. So go and have a conversation, talk to your partner. Let's find out the mess that you're in, what the future looks like, what the next year, 2 years, 3 years look like. Because whichever way you look at it, the result is going to be that you are in control of what's coming in and what's going out, making sure that you're not spending more money than you're earning, looking to the future to make sure that your retirement's going to be okay and that you're not absolutely working yourself to death. That's what you've got to try and keep away from. In order to do that, you have to get clarity. But if you've already got a relationship that's going, I don't even really want to pull the cloak off the money in the corner, that's going to be your first stumbling block. And I'm not, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, at length. But right now, when we're talking about if you are finding it uncomfortable to talk about money, I get it. And you're not alone. There's loads that you can do about it. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about the money type quiz, am I?
Yeah, go for it. Why not?
So on my website, which is www.financesHow.com, there's a money type quiz. Just have a go. It takes 2 minutes. There's a little video at the front, little video at the back to explain what it's all about. Have a little go and see what comes up for you. And maybe that could be the very first step to change.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic. What a great way to finish this episode as well. So I suppose one takeaway that I'm getting from this is that is really to understand where you are in relation to money at the moment. And if we've been in this situation where we've spent years and years ignoring money for whatever reason, the first step would actually say, well, okay, well, if I've been ignoring, what is the impact, or what is the future impact if things continue the same way as they are?
Yeah.
And almost give yourself permission to take that cloak off and start approaching things with curiosity.
Yeah. Or there's a question that I ask people. I say, if money was your lover, what kind of relationship would you be having with it? Is it all hot and sweaty and gorgeous? Is it sort of meh? Or would you be very happy never ever to see them again? And that will be the starter. That could be a starting block for you. And especially if you've been told that you really shouldn't be thinking about money, or that doctor's always going to earn loads and it's going to be fine, and all of a sudden you feel that money has let you down. It's not money, because money can't do anything by itself. But that's where you're starting from. Just become conscious and aware of that.
Brilliant. Fanny, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Medics in Control. If this episode resonated, feel free to follow the podcast or share it with someone else in medicine who might get something from it. And if you'd like to explore more, you can join the Medics in Control network, www.medicsincontrol.com/Medics in Control-network. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next episode.